Story 1. Neighbor with a gun. Trash bin incident. You never expect your neighbor to try and kill you over trash bins. Not the man who borrowed your snow shovel 2 weeks ago. Not the guy you've waved to every morning for 2 years. And definitely not on a quiet Boxing Day morning. The day after Christmas. It was December 26th. Boxing Day, a quiet Toronto suburb. The streets were still covered in snow, dotted with discarded wrapping paper and crushed cardboard boxes. Melody and I were supposed to spend the day cleaning up, recovering from Christmas dinner with family. I stepped outside to grab something from my car and immediately saw the problem. Greg's trash bins were blocking our narrow shared driveway. Blue recycling, black garbage, right in the middle, overflowing with empty soda boxes and liquor bottles. I sighed. Greg had been struggling ever since losing his job in November, but I needed to move my car, so I grabbed the black bin to slide it aside. That's when his door slammed open. Greg stumbled out, barely dressed for the freezing -5 weather, reeking of alcohol. He screamed at me not to touch his property. I tried to explain calmly that I just needed to get my car out. He slurred something about respect, about my fancy car, about how no one cared about him anymore. His words didn't connect. I thought he was just drunk. I stepped back, hands raised. "All right, man, relax." He turned and stumbled back inside. I thought it was over. I got into my car, adjusted the seat, and started the engine. Then I saw him again walking back out. But this time, something was different. His right hand was tucked behind his back. His movements were slow, deliberate. And then I saw it. A small black semi-automatic pistol held low at his side. My stomach dropped. "Get in, your house." His voice was flat, cold. His finger rested on the trigger. I didn't think. I scrambled backward, tripping over the side door and slamming it shut behind me. I locked it and yelled for Melody to call 911. The first shot hit the brick wall beside the kitchen window. We dropped to the floor, crawling behind the couch. More shots rang out sharp, deafening cracks that made my ears ring. He started kicking the door, screaming incoherently about trash, respect, the government, how no one listened to him anymore. Then, silence. 30 seconds of silence. That felt worse than the gunfire. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Melody was crying, her phone pressed to her face as the 911 operator tried to keep her calm. Then the sirens arrived. Police flooded the driveway, ordering him to drop the weapon. Greg stood there, swaying, the gun hanging loosely in his hand. After what felt like an eternity, he dropped it. They cuffed him and dragged him into the back of a cruiser. We found out later that in Canada, handguns are nearly impossible to legally own. Greg had bought his off someone weeks earlier, after losing his job. The police said it was already loaded when they arrived. He'd fired 4 rounds. One hit the wall, one shattered a car window down the street. The others went into the snow. Greg wasn't angry about the trash. The trash was just the excuse. The gun was already loaded. The breakdown had already happened. All I did was stand in the wrong driveway on the wrong day. Greg is now serving 6 years for attempted murder and illegal weapons possession. We moved 3 months later. We don't talk about it much anymore, but every December 26th, when I hear a garbage bin scrape across pavement, my body still reacts like there's a gun pointed at my chest. Because sometimes the person who wants to kill you isn't a stranger in a dark alley. It's your neighbor, over trash. Story 2. The Party Crasher. You think your house is safe during a holiday party. You think the people laughing in your living room are the only ones inside. But sometimes, the most dangerous guest is the one you never invited. The one who's been watching you for weeks. William and his wife Anukika were hosting their annual Christmas party in Denver. Their home was packed 40 people, music blasting, laughter echoing through the halls. The scent of roasted turkey mixed with pine from the tree. Glasses clinked. Friends hugged. Everything felt perfect. Then he appeared. A man in his mid-30s, dressed casually in jeans and a flannel shirt, holding a beer like he belonged. When William asked who he came with, the man smiled and said, "Oh, I'm with Joel." William paused. He didn't know anyone named Joel, but the party was loud, chaotic, and full of plus ones he hadn't met. So he let it go. The man blended in, laughing at jokes, nodding along to conversations, refilling his drink. He lingered near the corners of rooms, watching people closely, but never drawing attention to himself. At some point during the night, he disappeared. William assumed he'd left with the rest of the crowd. The next morning, as they cleaned up, Anakaka bent down to pick up wrapping paper near the Christmas tree. That's when she saw it. A plain cardboard box, tucked behind the tree, partially hidden under crumpled gift wrap. "Did you put this here?" she asked. William shook his head. He opened it. Inside were photographs, hundreds of them. Every single one showed William and Anakaka sleeping in their bed. In their own bedroom, taken from different angles over multiple nights. Some were zoomed in on their faces. Others showed the entire room, lit only by the faint glow of a nightlight. Anukaka's hands trembled as she flipped through them. "These were taken in our house." At the bottom of the box was a folded note, written in neat handwriting. "Always check your house before sleeping." William's blood ran cold. He grabbed his phone and dialed 911. Police arrived within minutes. They searched every inch of the house closets, the attic, the basement, behind furniture, under beds. They found nothing. No fingerprints, no signs of forced entry. No broken windows or tampered locks. But they did find something disturbing. In the basement, behind an old storage shelf, there was a small clearing just big enough for someone to sit. A discarded water bottle, crumbs from a granola bar, a blanket folded neatly in the corner. Someone had been living in their house. Watching them, waiting, the officers suggested the intruder had likely been sneaking in and out for weeks, possibly through an unlocked basement window. They rarely checked. He'd learned their routines, knew when they went to bed, knew when they'd be distracted by a party. And on Christmas Eve, he walked in through the front door like a guest. William and Anukaka couldn't stay. Every creak in the floorboards felt like footsteps. Every shadow cast by the Christmas lights looked like a figure standing in the corner. The house they'd loved, where they'd built memories, now felt like a trap. Within a week, they packed up and moved to another state. They didn't tell anyone where they were going. They abandoned the house, their friends, even some of their belongings. The man was never found. Police checked security footage from nearby homes, but he kept his head down, his face hidden. He knew exactly what he was doing. To this day, William keeps every door locked, every window latched, and before bed, he checks every room in the house. Because he knows the truth now. Your home is only safe if you're the only one with a key. Story 3. The Dirty Man in the Attic. You think your home is the safest place in the world. You lock the doors, you check the windows, but sometimes the danger is already inside, living in the space above your head. And it's your child who sees him first. It was the day after Christmas in a quiet Chicago suburb. A single mom, let's call her Sorowis, finally enjoying some peace with her 3-year-old son, Donald. The holiday rush was over. No more visitors, no more chaos. Just cocoa, cartoons, and a calm afternoon at home. Then she heard it. A faint creak from upstairs. Then another. Soft shuffling, like someone shifting their weight on old floorboards. Sarah paused. Probably the house settling, she thought. Old homes made noise in the winter, but Donald wasn't moving. He stood frozen in the middle of the living room, staring up at the ceiling. "Mommy," he whispered, "the dirty man is walking." Sarah's stomach twisted. "What did you say, sweetheart?" "The dirty man," Donald repeated, his voice trembling. He walks at night. When we sleep, her throat went dry. She tried to laugh it off. Donald, there's no one up there. It's just the house making sounds. But Donald didn't smile. He didn't move. His little hands gripped his stuffed bear tighter, and his eyes stayed locked on the ceiling. Something in her gut told her not to ignore it. Sarah grabbed her phone and slowly climbed the stairs. The attic hatch was in the hallway ceiling, a pull-down ladder she rarely used. As she got closer, a smell hit her, foul, musty, like sweat and rot mixed together. Her hands shook as she pulled the ladder down. She climbed halfway up and shone her phone's flashlight into the darkness. And then she saw him. A man crouched in the corner of the attic, filthy, his clothes torn and stained, his hair matted, his eyes wide and wild, reflecting the light like an animal caught in a trap. Sarah screamed and fell backward off the ladder, hitting the floor hard. She scrambled to her feet, grabbed Donald, and locked them both in the bathroom. She dialed 911, her voice shaking so badly the operator had to ask her to repeat herself. Police arrived in minutes. Officers stormed the house, shouting commands. The man didn't resist. He climbed down slowly, muttering under his breath something about the family, about watching them sleep, about how warm the house was. He had been living in their attic for at least a week, possibly longer. Investigators found evidence scattered around the cramped space: empty food containers, water bottles, a blanket, even a flashlight. He'd been sneaking down at night through the crawl space, eating their leftovers, using their bathroom when they were asleep. He knew their routines. He knew when Sarah put Donald to bed. He knew when the house went quiet, and Donald had seen him. Not clearly, not directly, but children notice things. Adults dismiss. A shadow moving in the hallway. A creak that doesn't match the wind. A feeling that something isn't right. Sarah moved out 2 weeks later. She couldn't stay in that house, couldn't sleep knowing someone had been above her, watching, waiting. Donald still talks about the dirty man. Every time he hears a creak in the ceiling at their new apartment, at his grandma's house, anywhere he looks up and whispers, "The dirty man is walking." Because some fears don't leave when the danger does. They stay with you, in every sound, in every shadow. And sometimes, the smallest voice is the one that saves your life. Story 4. The Lazy Day Stalker. The day after Christmas is supposed to be the safest day of the year. You're home, your family's around, the doors are locked, or at least you think they are. But sometimes, the person waiting to strike has already been watching, and he's already inside. It was December 26th, in a quiet suburb outside Milwaukee. The Martinez family was exhausted. Christmas had been a blur of cooking, hosting, and entertaining relatives. Now, finally, it was just the four of them: Mom, Dad, and 2 teenage kids sprawled out on the couch, half asleep, surrounded by wrapping paper and leftover pie. The front door was unlocked. The back door too. They'd been running in and out all morning, taking out trash, hauling boxes to the garage. No one thought to lock up. Why would they? It was the middle of the day. The neighborhood was quiet. Everyone was home doing the same thing, recovering, but someone had been watching. A drifter in his early 20s had been casing the neighborhood for days. He knew which houses had expensive cars in the driveway. He knew which families had been hosting big gatherings. He knew which homes would be tired, distracted, and careless the day after Christmas. And he knew the Martinez family hadn't locked their back door. He slipped inside while they were in the living room, moving silently through the kitchen and into the hallway. He found a small storage closet near the garage, cramped, dark, filled with coats and boxes, and he waited, for hours. He listened to them laugh, watched shadows pass under the door, heard the TV playing old Christmas movies. He didn't move, didn't make a sound. He was patient. Around 4 p.m., the dad went upstairs to nap. The mom took the dog for a walk. The two kids stayed glued to their phones in the living room. That's when he moved. He crept upstairs, checking rooms quickly, quietly. He rifled through drawers in the master bedroom jewelry, cash, passports. He grabbed a laptop from the office. He was calm, methodical. He knew he had time. But then he knocked over a glass picture frame. Crash. The sound echoed through the house. Downstairs, the teenage son looked up. Dad. No answer. He walked to the bottom of the stairs. Dad, you okay? That's when he saw him, a stranger, standing at the top of the staircase, holding his mom's jewelry box. The boy froze. The man bolted. He ran down the stairs, shoving the kid aside, and sprinted out the back door. The son yelled for his sister, who called 911. By the time the mom got back from her walk, the house was swarming with police. The intruder was gone, but he'd left behind something worse than stolen valuables. He'd left the feeling that their home was no longer safe. Police later found evidence. He'd been in the house for over 3 hours, hiding in that closet, waiting for the perfect moment. He'd touched their things, stood in their bedroom, watched them through the crack in the door. He was never caught. The Martinez family installed a security system 2 days later. Cameras, motion sensors, new locks on every door. But the damage was already done. They couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been there, standing in the corner, watching them laugh, waiting for them to let their guard down. And every time they hear a creak in the house now, the same thought crosses their minds. What if he came back? Because the scariest intruders aren't the ones who break down your door. They're the ones who walk in and wait.